My name is Hunter Shepard, and I'm an addiction recovery influencer.
I'm Celestia Barbie, life coach and inspirational speaker, and we're here today at the New Life Centre in these beautiful settings.
And we're here with Eddie Stainer, who celebrates 9 months of sobriety today.
Thank you. 9 months. It's been a journey.
It's absolutely amazing to have you here, Eddie. To start off with then, can you take us back to your childhood and how was growing up for you?
I was born in 1977, the youngest of 5 children, good parents, you know. We were raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. It's all we knew from birth, you know. My dad was a double glazing salesman, just when double glazing had just started, so we started to earn a bit, but everything was good, you know. We had to go to religiously 5 meetings a week and do ministry service at the weekends, and then at the age of 7, my dad had earned enough to move us from the estate to a bigger house, 2 bathrooms, all that sort of stuff, which was good. We had land around us, and back in them days you just used to play out with your mates and everything. But just before I was 8 years old, my dad passed away.
And how did that affect you growing up?
My mum pretty much became an alcoholic straight away. And when you're in a religion like that, you can only ask for help in that because it's quite a close community. So she did ask for the help in there, but she hid it a lot. She never really got out of bed. We didn't see it, only for the meetings to take us. So I felt like I was left on my own because I had 3 older brothers that were quite a lot older, and they were even getting married at that time and stuff. And they all sort of got married off and left home, and it was just left me and my sister. It was a year and a half older, and my mum in this massive house, 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and it was empty. My dad had passed. I don't think I ever really spoke about it. Myself, I became quite aggressive and defensive.
Do you have any memories of your dad?
Small ones. I loved him, I still love him. He tightens you, you know, inside you think about it. I'm older than he would have been now, which is, because you think when you're that age, you think you'll know everything. You look at your parents like, oh, they know everything, and now I'm past that age, you think, I'm only just finding out about myself. But I think about him, but not as often, not much. The memories aren't a lot, really.
And what was it like growing up as a Jehovah's Witness?
Strict. You sort of told as a child how to live. This is how you've got to behave. This is how you've got to do. I had to give speeches sometimes, like talks, 5 minutes, and I'd be on a buzzer in front of a congregation, and I'd have to learn to read a whole scripture and put my points in across, which my brother would sort of doctor me in, because initially it'd take me 8 minutes to just read the scripture. So there was a lot of pressure. And then at the end, in a small town, when you're going on the ministry service, the door knocking,
Yeah.
you're calling on your friends' houses, and they see you at school.
So it's fair to say that you grew up significantly different than...
Yeah, no, taken out of school at Christmas, no birthdays, no Halloweens, no school discos, no partying. You're quite secluded, I feel, because your only friends have pretty much got to be in that environment, you know, because everything else is looked at as the world. And it's like a fearful place, really.
Yeah.
So
Did you ever get bullied at school because you were different?
I feel like I made myself different in some ways because I had to protect myself once my dad had died, and my mum was just in a room. You know, I didn't even wear a pair of trousers in my life until I was 11 years old. You know, I got sent home from the first day of secondary school because I went in shorts, and that's when my mum decided to buy me some trousers. I'd never worn them in my life because my mum was sort of given up once her soulmate had passed, had given up, and she should have had the support of the religion, but it wasn't there. So I was very stuck where I pretty much had to live a double life to protect myself. I had to be aggressive. I just felt anxious.
When did you start to experience issues with addiction?
I did it straight away. So my mum became a drinker, and we had a big family, sort of cousins, and we had this big house. So we'd have big parties, but would all be around drinking, okay? So everyone would come up, and I think everyone's just mission was to get, because I was sort of the youngest of that generation, to get me drunk. So I remember drinking from the ages of 8 and 9, and no one really, and vomiting in my bedroom, and no one really batted an eyelid. It was like a point of fun. And also, after the meetings sometimes, my mum would always buy special brew after, because you got to keep it secret. And she'd make lots of trifles for the parties, so she'd secretly hide sherry around the house and stuff like that. So she'd buy me a couple of cans of Scandia Green, even when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, you know. And then I started associating with an older lad through the congregation, and you just boys really. And he was older than me, so he could get whiskey, and I knew I didn't drink like a normal person.
Yeah.
I didn't realise then, but I realise now that I was just pouring it into just block.
So would you say your mum was the influence of you starting the alcohol journey?
I think my whole family.
Whole family,
I think my gran used to drink a bottle of whiskey every day. We used to meet, the whole family used to meet at my grandparents' house every day after school and stuff. The whole family in this little house, that was my grandparents. And then my gran used to drink a bottle of whiskey a day. So there'd always be bottles of alcohol. And my auntie and my mum would drink whiskey and then drive us home from school. We never thought anything of it. And then they would go to the meetings. I was just surrounded by alcohol. It was like normal to our family.
Moving forward then, what happened next? You know, you're drinking all the time.
I feel I always had a problem with drinking, but my mum ended up passing when I was just turned 20. But before I turned 20, I was taking a lot of speed bombs, a lot of ecstasy, but I was working at the same time. You know, I didn't feel I had a problem with it.
Yeah.
But then I realised I started to, because after my mum passed, I was drinking more and more and more, and not just drinking for social, I was just drinking all the time. And even before I was drinking, going down to the pub all the time and just drinking constantly. But I was able to get up at that point and just carry on and hide the anxiety. I'd say I was drinking to not be me. I was drinking to not be me.
To step out of reality.
Yeah, just I didn't want. I never grieved. I know I never grieved. I didn't know that until more recent, but I still never grieved. And
Do you think that affects you now?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I struggle because once you come that far and it's been blocked automatically in some way. Where do you begin? You know, where do you begin?
Do you put any blame onto yourself?
The only blame I feel I can put on myself is feeling that for a long time that I've got a chip on my shoulder. I've had a tough life, so I deserve to do this. I've got a reason to do this, and that was my anger and everything. But through learning, I feel that I've affected as many people around me as possible. In a negative way, my family, my friends, I've pushed people away, opportunities, everything, and they've lost all the same things. So I realised that it was not just affecting me, but everyone around me, and I feel that that's what my mum, my family, the religion did to me. It's kind of a disassociation all the way along.
I read a quote, and it said that your trauma might not be your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. And I think that that's kind of essentially what you just said, you know, that, you know, the trauma wasn't your fault, but you take accountability on the healing, the back end side of it, you know.
And rather than heal, I never knew how, so it's been a case of blocking and blocking and blocking, because I've never been allowed counselling, because I've got I've maybe been a bit naughty in my past. There's a lot of information on my medical file that looks bad, and obviously I've been diagnosed ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, a mixture of personality disorders, and all these different things. So when I've been put forward for a counsellor, they look at my file, which is, I've been on medication since I was 16, and they say, we won't be able to help you in 10 sessions. We're scared of unleashing a monster. We're scared of opening a box of worms. You need long-term therapy with a psychologist, you know, to heal. So I've always not had anyone to talk. This is probably one of the first times I'm talking about it.
How does it feel like to be called a monster?
It's not that they call me a monster, but it's like, I get it. Because the feeling inside, if I watch anything sad on telly or anything relatable, my whole body pulses with, like, it just, all of it wants to spill out in tears. It just bounces. So I can understand that there's raw emotion in there that's just been blocked, and that needs pulling out, not in 10 weeks.
Yeah.
But I've got to take that ownership. But I have tried and failed so many assessments because group therapy is a bit risky with you, because maybe I've muscles and tattoos and I've too much trauma. But I'm waiting now, only because of the last spell on long-term psychology, which is amazing. You know, the only other offers I've had is rehab, which I swear to God, I wish I'd have taken.
Going back into your work life then, you mentioned earlier that you were working alongside of, you know, kind of going on that addiction lifestyle. What were you doing for work?
So initially, I was a personal trainer. Okay.
Interesting.
So as a personal trainer, I'd met the mother of my children. Everything was real good. And then the relationship broke down between us. And then I just felt I was on my own and I could go out and do what I wanted. And drinking became massive again. And doing this, and then it started to spill out into everything. I wasn't just drinking, I'd be drinking on my own. I'd start drinking at home on my own. And I'd be drinking, and my behaviour started to really change with it. Really changed it. And then I was personal training, and I believe it. I was so successful, but I think my clients started to notice and were concerned and said things, but they stuck by me. And in the end, I had to realise that I had a massive problem, and I had to go bankrupt. I couldn't even leave the house. It had affected me that much.
So when was the first time that you got sober, like was it throughout like that time, like whenever your relationship?
What had happened was, after the relationship, I'd be drinking, but I'd quite cover it well. So I don't really know, because it wouldn't be every day at that point, but it'd be to binge drink, okay? But as it went further along, it became like 2 weeks of binge drinking, like 2 weeks. And then I'd be sober for a long time, go back to the gym and get super fit. And then I'd binge. And then someone would call my sister, and she'd come down, and there'd be cans and bottles filled with urine of mine, because I couldn't even be bothered to go to the toilet. Because at this point I'm on vodka, 2 to 3 litres a day, you know. I'd even be covered in my own faeces. I'd be mixing it with tomato juice or water or anything, just half a pint of vodka, half a pint of water, and just pouring it in. And it just total spiraled to that level. And then I'd end up in hospital, keep escaping.
When you're escaping hospital, like, what was going through your head?
I need a drink. You're in hospital, you're rattling, and I'd be the one that they'd take off the ward because I couldn't behave. I'd be taken off the ward, and they'd put me in a room, and I'd be complaining about pain and shaking and rattling. I'd be going through hell.
Did you always leave fully dressed?
No, I've walked down the road loads of times pulling the catheter out of my arm, and I've thumbed down taxis and not paid them. I remember once on Christmas Day, I was in hospital. They moved me to a room because I was being too noisy, and then Santa came round, and he, I don't know what he brought, and then I just left the hospital, and I was just in a little pair of swimming trunks, red trunks. And this is in Macclesfield, which is 12 miles away from my house.
And you know it's cold up there too.
Yeah, and I'm walking about, and people are saying to me, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah.
Did you have any shoes on?
No, I don't know. I really don't recall. And then I managed to get back to Buxton through a taxi somehow.
And how old were you like at that point?
5 years ago,
Oh, that was 5 years ago.
maybe so. Approximately 5 years ago.
So how many periods of like long-term sobriety have you had?
Previously to this, I was 3 years, 4 months and 19 days.
And what got you off that? What changed?
But I was doing really well with my sobriety, teaching people, helping people, loved it, lived it. I met a girl, and then I began seeing her, and she was taking cocaine, and I never spoke about this, to be honest. So, yeah, I thought I don't have a problem with cocaine, really. I have a problem with anything. And then I started taking cocaine with her.
The first time you took the cocaine, that exact second you're taking it, what was going through your mind?
Absolute hell. Absolute hell.
And what it was the relationship that got you to that point, is what you're saying.
Maybe so, because I've been with her and she made me feel like she was stopping doing it because of me. Now, she could drink around me. I've got no problem with people drinking around me whatsoever, because for the most part, it's invisible, yeah? And she didn't drink often. But when the cocaine came in, it was a case of, we've both got to do it. And it was just, she wore me down. She controlled me. She had to be with me all the time. Yeah, every night, she lived an hour away, but if I travelled back for an appointment, I'd have to go back, or she'd come and stay at mine. You know, when she started being a little bit controlling and gaslighting, and she became violent, and then she broke her knuckles on me, I'd smashed my place up, smashed my car.
How does it feel like as a man to be hit by a woman?
I don't know, because I was beaten down at that point anyway. It didn't faze me being it. I was more embarrassed, because I feel like this girl I'm meant to be with is doing this, and how do I run that by my family? How do they accept her?
Do you feel like love drawn you in?
I don't feel like love drew me in. I feel like it was codependency. I feel like initially I was dead strong, and I knew it wasn't right from the start, but she kept being in touch, and I wasn't as strong as I thought I was, because as soon as the cocaine came up, I did it. It would never happen again. But the cocaine, that became regular, by the way, the cocaine. Then it was mad cat, meow meow, do you know, which is hard to get. So I was contacting also. Then it became dizzies, diazepam, you know, and then she'd be offering my scripts with pregabalin, and it'd be like that. And then when you've not got it, it's so frustrating. And then it became weed, and we're going through like 50 quid every 2 days. And I disconnected from my family and disconnected from everything. I was cornered. So I felt when we were at my sister's and it was the final straw, so I said, you know what, because they didn't defend me, I'll get as drunk as you lot. And I went to the shop and I rung my sister. I said, do you want anything? She goes, no. And I rung my girlfriend and said, do you want anything? No. And I rung my brother, do you want anything? And I expected them to go, don't buy nothing, but they didn't. I think they were calling my brother. I don't know. But I went back up there and they wouldn't let me in, and I just opened the vodka, poured it in, and went on a mission of chaos for 5 weeks. And it wasn't, it was a cry for help. And I felt if I'd have ever gone to rehab the first time when I was offered it, I know how to deal with these situations. And even though I've learned so much through the mind, through self-learning and courses, the rehab, I would have had the associations of people in that environment and the support on the outside, because I've no counsellors, no nothing. I have a psychiatrist for meds once every 4 months.
Well, it sounds like throughout these periods of time in your life where you're really suffering, you become secluded. And I think that one of the things that you really would have got from rehab is the connection with other people that have experienced similar things to you, which is what, I mean, rehab is all about connection and community and stuff like that.
You're so right.
I think you were lacking that in some of the
I think so.
points.
I think the seclusion is still happening now.
Going into like your sort of 2025, what kind of friends were you growing up with?
In that age, I did have a lot of friends, and everything. Cause I was an ego, you know. So I was a Thai boxer. I was I've split with the mother of my kids when I was 27. So I was single, I was a bouncer, do you know, before Doorbell just came out and everything like that. So I just dated and just got, you know, and then I'd end up working all different types of clubs, and I'd be knocking about with sort of bad people as well, do you know, where drugs are easy, but realistically, my problem really was behind closed doors.
What was the worst thing that happened to you behind closed doors?
2016 stands out. I was, I'd been 11 months sober. I was doing it quite well. I had an appointment with my psychiatrist. He said, we're going to take you off the mental health register, and he changed my medications. Within a few days, I started feeling not good at all, not right. Not an excuse, but I drank. I can't really remember why I drank. I just think I felt so anxious, and I drank just so close to a year, and I drank, and then I'd met someone from my past, from 20 years previously, who'd contacted me just previously, before that, on Facebook. And I look at everything for a reason, sometimes, the wrong reason. So this lady who contacted me, she was said she was a philanthropist, psychotherapist or psychologist of some type, humanitarian, but she changed her name, so I had to really look at a picture. And she goes, I used to live a few doors up from you when you were 20. I remember you had a fight at a pub. I walked you home. Your mum had just died. She seemed to know a lot about me, and I was like, wow. And I looked and I said, your name was different. It was Michelle or something. She goes, yeah, it was Michelle like that. So I didn't know her really well, but she said, do you want to get a coffee? Nothing like a date, anything like that. It was more like just reminiscing, you know? So I met her for a coffee. I could tell she was a bit strange, but I felt sorry for her. She said she was back in Buxton for end of life for her mum. She'd been living in Turkey, and she changed her name because she was an author as well. And she'd set up some charity called Hands or something, which helps people. And anyway, at the time I was drinking, began drinking, she texted me. She used to come around for a brew sometimes, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. And she texts me and she goes, how are you doing? I says, I'm drinking. And obviously I'd told her previously about my drinking and that I was on a sober run. I was doing well. So she said, do you want me to make you some soup, something? So she came round to my house. I was on the sofa, just pretty much as drunk as you can be, because I drink like 2 to 3 litres of vodka a day, just pouring it in. Wow. I used to vomit blood. I've got Barrett's esophagus now because I deadened all the nerves, and I used to vomit blood constantly. Wow. That's the damage it caused. I have to take omeprazole now. I've got 16 centimetres of Barrett's esophagus. So she came round, make me something to eat, she did. Then she drugged me. She drugged me, yeah. So she drugged me in the food or in the drink. The police found the medications with her name written on: Rohypnol, Tramadol, Trazodone, codeine. There was all sorts in it. This sodium one. Basically, it blocks your thoughts and everything like that, yeah. So you don't know what's going on. I was like a zombie. I couldn't move at all. I was peeing and pooing myself. Anyway, she kept me there. She took my phone. She had my phone. I was basically like a head on a stick, I'd say. And she took my phone and she was texting my family and friends when they were texting, saying, how are you doing? We haven't heard from you.
She was pretending to be you?
Yeah, saying I've got flu, best not to come round. And all this lot. I had one friend who I sort of knew, who came round to check on me twice. Yeah, because no one had heard from me. And she knocked on and the woman let her in. And she says I was covered in my own stuff and just she says I was flat out of sleep, like told me flat. Then the other person who was keeping me captive, would go in the kitchen and then come in with a protein shaker full of alcohol, I assume, and the meds that I was being given, and flat back down. So I went off 2 weeks and 5 days. I was burned down my legs, don't know what with, whether it was boiling water, whether it was bleach. I've been told it might have been a blowtorch, but my feet were done as well, maybe so I couldn't walk. And up here, I was stabbed and cut numerous times. Cigarette burns on my shoulder. I've got under my beard scars. Caught on my cigarette under my nipple, in my chest here. I've got a big scar here.
Do you feel like you ever did any of this to yourself?
No. I remember her filming it. I remember her hitting me with a stick quite a lot and laughing at it. And sorry, my heart. And showing it to me, laughing. It was horrendous. I was suffocated at one point. I remember being in the bathroom, 2 people being there, face down, suffocated, like trying to move me, and I was in agony. I just remember being in so much pain and could not get my breath. And it was like, I think it was quite playful for them. But they emptied my bank. I'm quite organised at home, so I have a file with my bank numbers in my so they emptied my bank and credit card, £4,883 over 2 weeks, 5 days. They were maxing out and taking the money. Yeah, and just keeping me docile. But one day I believe I was set up so I could make it to hospital or something, because the door was open one day. The door was unlocked. Not that I could ever get to it, but I felt more like I could get up. And I remember pulling myself off the floor, across the floor, and getting the door handle. So, and my phone was on the floor. And I never had that. I couldn't. I've only got flashbacks, you've got to remember. So I remember hitting the phone and just screenshots of the ceiling. I didn't know what I was doing with it. Then all of a sudden the phone's ringing. I don't fully recall, but I rung an old boss from years ago. It was a number I shouldn't have even had on my phone, you know? Andy Bagshaw. And I rung him at 6:14 on a Sunday morning, June the 4th. I rung him and he's told me after, obviously I just said, ambulance. That was it, and the phone went dead. He's been trying to ring me back for a good few minutes, apparently nothing. So eventually, the ambulance, he had to persuade him, because remember, I've had a lot of ambulances to my address through drinking. So he had to persuade him, because he knew something wasn't right. I'm naked. Anyway, the ambulance came. It took a while for him to come. I don't remember that, I was gone. And they found me with burns all down my legs, absolute in a state, naked and everything. And I was in Maxfield Hospital for a week, waiting for a bed at Wythenshawe Burns Unit, specialist burns unit, with my legs bandaged. But I was out of it for a week there. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know I was trying to pretend I was smoking juice. I thought I was watching tellies. There was no tellies in my hospital. I didn't even know. I thought I was in a cafe at one point. I thought there was a dog in there at one point. I said, you know. So I'm totally out of it through the medications. It was a fight to come back, really.
Did anyone come and visit you?
In the hospital, yes. She came.
She came?
Okay, yeah. Sorry. I never spoke about it. She's rung my sister, because they knew each other. We knew she was weird, but she rung my sister and goes, I've gone to Eddie's and he's not there. Because I believe she told him that she was helping me, you know, and I was pulling stuff, but he's not there. She's gone, no, he's in hospital with sunburns or something. I think my sister had been down that day, and whether it explained it or not, I don't know. I was gone. And day 2, she comes down on her own. Yeah? Day 2, she bought me a bottle of vodka. I'm in hospital, she bought me a bottle of vodka.
Wow. How did the hospital even allow that in?
They didn't allow it in. This is what the police told us after. She bought a bottle of vodka and still taking money out of my bank, even on day 2. She come into the hospital. I don't remember much about her being there, but she came in. Day 3 or 4, my brother and sister come in. My sister says to me, she's never seen me look scared. Not scared. I've heard my sister's voice and she goes, where is he? And they've looked across in my bed and I'm all bandaged up and everything. And my sister says, I looked across, seeing my sister, my brother, and the person I don't want to say her name, and seeing the person, and my sister said, I looked absolutely petrified. Then they've walked over to my bed, and I've been going, get her away from me, get her away from me, get her away from me. And my sister's going, who? And I'm pointing. And my sister's going, can you mind just going out? And she's like, fine, she's gone out. And then my sister says, totally out of it, talking about smoking and this, that, and the other, I don't know where I am. And then all of a sudden she goes, I came to, and she goes, and I looked at her and went, my sister's called Esther, and I went, Esther, she's beating the shit out of me. And then I've gone again, and my sister's like, what? And it took a good few minutes, and then I've come back, and I've told her again. In the car ride on the way back, they're like this, they're discussing contacting social services with her phone's going off constant, and the police like that. And she knew all about social services. She goes, whatever you do, don't deal with this person. Which is when things started to come up and I started to remember, because I was moved to the burns unit after a week. They offered me skin grafts, but I had a chance to. And I was in there a long time. I was recovering. I couldn't walk at first or nothing. But I did well. I was eating good because it's the burns unit that feeds you good protein. But as soon as contacted social services, my sister said, get that woman away from your brother. She's changed her name 3 times.
So when was the last time you saw that woman?
Then.
Then? It was then?
She's gone.
How did you get away from her?
That day, I think she'd set me up like I'd remember everything so that she could take everything. Now, this is the crazy part, okay? This is tough for you to get. 11 months before that, when I last drank, I was drinking for 3 months, yeah? And I went in hospital with bruises, battered and bruised all over my body. My brother kept coming round and he took me in the end. He goes, I don't know what's going on with you. She was there every time, yeah? I don't keep an eye on my money, nothing like that. I've gone into Women's Shore Hospital that time because they've had to check everything, anything broken. I had a team of doctors around me going, you've been seriously beaten over a number of weeks. And I went, no. And they said to her and my brother, no, he hasn't. So it was just ignored. So the only reason we know it was her was the police said it's definitely her because she's previously poisoned her own kid, giving him brain damage, she poisoned him with salt, served time for that. She got sent down for, she wasn't in Turkey at all. She's none of the things she said. She got sent down for 2.5 years for fraudulent claiming she had terminal cancer and setting up charities. You know, she set up a kids' football team in the FA. She's a dangerous. She's got Munchausen by proxy. I believe she needed to look after me and keep me poorly as a possession because she had not enough love as a kid or something.
Wow.
But that's it. It's just, he's never spoke about now. You know, this is the first time I speak about it because it's like I've been, something bad like this happens and people don't know how to approach it. So it's just there.
And it's getting people to believe it as well, you know? It's such a deep story.
And people have questions. People want to know about the facts. But don't want to know how I feel.
I hear that.
You know?
You said that the ambulance wouldn't come because, or they were delayed because how many times did you have to go in the ambulance to the hospital?
I think it was in 2016, from what I can remember, or 2015. I'd had 11 ambulances in a month.
Wow.
I was always in ambulance. I remember being in hospital and the same ambulance that had taken me the night before to Stockport, they'd shown up again in the actual hospital, even though I'd escaped and come back home because I wanted a drink. And I know it's wrong. And I know I'm costing people money. But I don't know what's going on.
Yep. It's uncontrollable at that point.
Yeah, it's well out of my control. It's well out of anybody's control. There's no laws, there's no limits, there's no nothing that matters. You know, alcohol is everything. It's got you. And you are screaming out for help with these ambulance people, but because they can't take the pain away quick enough, then there's nothing that can be done but to drink again. And then I've seen the same ambulance people, they come up to me and they go, "You all right, Eddie?" I'm like, "We took you last night." I'm like, "Yeah." So I had 3 ambulances last time I drank. Sent me home 2 times to the hospital, done nothing. Told me to keep drinking, moderate it, impossible. I can't count my units. I lie about my unit.
Who told you that?
The hospital, I went into Macclesfield once. My sister and her boyfriend took me into Macclesfield once. My daughter, the ambulance people, listen to this, the ambulance people came round to my house and then I was watching something out of it and then they actually sat down with me, watched the film, and one of them went in the kitchen and made me a spaghetti bolognese from scratch and rung my daughter's phone, and my daughter would never normally answer it because it'd be me being a total space cadet. But she answered it and they goes, "You need to come now." And she goes, "My address, you need to come now." So she came round and she goes, "They were there 2 hours. They made you dinner, they sat with you, everything." We got in the ambulance, took me up, but then the hospital sent me back home. It was only the last time that I was kept in and I was surrounded like 4 security constantly, do you know, because I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything, and I was kept in hospital for a month and then sent to a respite facility, and then I was looking at possibly rehab, but by then the rehabs are too much of a waiting list, or I've got the avenue to go down with the psychologist. Now the psychologist I've been waiting on forever, so I'm wanting both. And that's why back in the day, I just wish when they'd funded me for the rehab, I'd have taken it for the support, for the people, for not falling back, because I could have died a million times.
Who was going to fund you?
Who? It was the council. So I had an alcohol advisor.
Yeah.
And basically, through costing the NHS a fortune, they said to me, they're willing to do it for at least 6 months. They're going to do it, you just need to meet the committee. So they drove me round to one in Wirral. I went to one to look at. Then I went to a Phoenix in one in Sheffield to look at. I went to the ones that might have had gyms. And then I spoke to the people in there and everything like that. But by this point, I'm sober again because I go cold turkey. I risk my life because I can't reduce.
Yeah.
In a rehab, that's why I should have been in a rehab.
Your daughter, like, how was her mental health having you as a dad?
My daughter did psychology and she wanted to be a counsellor. And her mission statement, apparently you have to do a mission statement for university, yeah, was that basically I want to do this to be able to understand my dad. Because she loves me, they both love me, but for months at a time, I just stopped seeing them. Stop. And they get it. They get addiction and they're so supportive and they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant, but they've had to grow up too fast because of it.
What is addiction to you?
A killer, an absolute killer. It'll penetrate everything, takes over everything, and it takes over your life, and it's something nobody needs. Nobody needs, and everyone will see it at some point, whether it's them. But if you try and stop something that when you're dependent on, that can kill you for stopping it, it's the most incredible thing in the world, because it's you're going through absolute hell. Addiction's something you can't stop. Without support. And I had the family, I had this, that shouldn't have been there for me. But they knew. And I jeopardised that and everything, but they all wanted me to go to rehab. You know? But I just kept thinking I can do it without. And then I've gone back on myself again. It's someone who understands it, because that's what I didn't get because of the rehab. This is exactly my thing. So if I'd have had the rehab and I went to a meeting in Buxton, my town, and I couldn't relate. And my doctor says, you need to go to a city because your stories are quite extreme. You need to go to a city. And I didn't really do that, but through meeting Hunter and hearing stories of other people, I can relate. But that's why I should have gone to rehab, to learn to live with people exactly in the same boat and connect with these people, make his lifetime friends, because they get it. Society doesn't get it. It's frowned upon, it's looked dirty, you know? People can't admit that alcoholism exists or that they've got an alcohol problem.
And from the age of 8 years old?
So as long back as I can remember, my mum buying it.
Well, was your dad an alcoholic?
No, well, I don't know, because I can't remember, but I know that he was in the casino when my eldest brother was born. My dad was in the casino when my mum was going to have the baby, and he went in to get him, and he just said, nah. But he used to be a teddy boy, and I think he used to drink and fight and stuff, and he was ex-forces, so I don't think that, if you look back at it in them days, and he died at 43, so he died in the, 80s.
So you've made it, you're older than your dad?
I'm older, so he was, I think he was 44. So yeah, that was a worrying year, because, I just felt, and what I've done to my body, my doctor said to me, looking really healthy, Eddie, I says, yeah, I feel good. He goes, don't ever think you're a healthy man. I'm like, all right, you've got ginger hair, you know? It's like that.
To go, I was thinking, so to go back to something that you said that society doesn't get addiction. No. Do you think that, like here in the UK especially, that there's like even more so a stigma around people that are suffering from it?
Yeah.
Is it hard to admit, you know what I mean?
The only people that will talk to me about addiction generally in person are the people who are actually drunk. You speak to them when they're sober, whoa, I've got no problem with alcohol, stuff like that. Yeah, but when they come to you and they've had a drink, they go, oh, I need help. Yeah. Because it's looked dirty or it's looked like a weakness. Yeah. And that's why people don't talk about it or seek the help. Do you know? And this is the first time I've really got to talk about it. So I think as British anyway, we don't speak how we feel. Do you know? We just don't. We've got to have that stiff upper lip as such. So it's a bit maybe a addiction, because that's what it is. You can say I've got alcoholism, but once you add addiction, then it's like, it's dirty. Yeah. So addiction's a dirty word to people.
Do you think it's partially because alcohol is like part of the culture and social life here and there? Like there's a pub on every corner, you know?
I think it's exactly that. I think it's, I don't get, for me, why at Christmas time, which is the hardest time of the year for so many people, why they have alcohol bargains from Morrison's, from every company on telly saying buy 3 cakes of Stella for 20 quid, buy this, and why you've got Philip Schofield on the telly going, buy this subscription of this wine company, and I just don't get that. You can't advertise smoking, you can't advertise this, but the biggest killer, the one that tears families apart and destroys everything, advertising it'd be categorised more than a category A substance, alcohol, by now, and it's so cheap. That's why I see tramps with it at the side of the street, you know, with a 3-litre bottle of White Lightning.
Yep.
Why do you want to live your life now?
I want to learn about myself. I think your biggest adventure is, and it's tough, I love learning about myself, but I get anxious about that digging into myself, just because I think that much has gone on, it's knowing where to start, but yeah, learning about myself, and that's where I was at before, but I've let other things, and now I'm on such a good journey, and I feel everything's moving in the right way, and you inspire.
So you're somebody that has relapsed in the past, right? And I am as well. I totally get it. What advice would you give to somebody to essentially overcome the fear of admitting that and coming back to sobriety?
Coming back?
Yeah.
Be brave. Be brave, talk to somebody, ask for support, go see your doctor, go see an alcohol, any path you've got, yeah? Don't take no for an answer, because you're worth it. Yeah. You're worth it, you know? There'll never be another one of you, not never, ever, ever. Everyone's worth it. Yeah. And no matter what you've been through or what you think you're hiding behind, everyone's hiding traumas. Everyone's hiding traumas. Yeah, and everyone can change.
What do you love the most out of life now?
I love my daughter's moved back in with me. My eldest. I got a book. I got a new girlfriend. She bought me a book. The boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. And I read that, and I've always wanted it. And I just love it because it's what I want out of life. The stuff it says, you can, at one point I think the horse says to the boy says, "I don't know which way to go. I don't know which," and he goes, "So long as you're taking a step forward, you're moving in the right direction." And that's it. Don't look at the big picture. Don't look at this. Don't look at that. And even yourself, you've told me, you set yourself 4 things to be looking forward to, in the future. And that's not about a person treading water. That's about a person living life and moving towards every day.
Keeping the vision alive, you see, because the vision can get cloudy if you don't set goals.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's it. I want to be happy. I want to be happy and content with no anxiety and be able to tell my story more and more and maybe be more clear on it, because this is one of the first times I've told it.
It's been wonderful listening, hasn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
I hope so.
A lot of people don't have the confidence to step forward and open up, and you're a grown man, and some of the stuff you've said has been really eye-opening, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I feel from the book again, I taught that the bravery's in asking for support, So by this, I'm sharing and I'm saying to other people, get support. Even me, I know I love you, but get support, get the doctors, get rehabilitated, just change, Anyone can do it. If I can, anyone can.
Yeah.
Eddie, it's been absolutely wonderful hearing your story today. It takes a real man to open up and to share his truth. So yeah, thank you for that.
Brilliant. It's been brilliant. Really good. It's
Yeah.
been good being here. I really appreciate it for your time and everything.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super grateful. And thank you guys. This was the New Life Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.